Mom, a special title for a group of exceptional women who have carried the weight of the world on their shoulders as they raise their tiny humans through 2 decades of life. Becoming and simply being a mother can bring on a range of feelings, and mothers deserve the best, including the very best mental health.
Welcome to Healthy Living, Wellness and Prevention, Medical Innovation, the informed side of care. Welcome to Baptist HealthTalk.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Johanna Gomez, for today's important discussion. May is a time where we come together to honor and celebrate the amazing mothers in our lives, no matter where they are in their journey. From newborns to empty nesters, here to discuss mental health and motherhood, we are joined by psychotherapists with Baptist Health, Manuela Rodriguez, and Dr. Natalia Echeverri, OB-GYN. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Can't wait to start this conversation and really to share all your wisdom with our viewers. But before we dive into today's subject, I just want to remind our viewers to send in your questions and your comments in the comment section throughout this discussion. We are here for you and happy to answer any questions that you may have. So Dr. Echeverri, let's start with you because it is very stressful. When you learn that you are going to be a mom, there are so many emotions that are going through you, happiness, but that stressfulness of what am I going to do? What should I do? And if anything, if I'm doing is right. So what advice would you and do you give to soon-to-be moms?
So I really tell my patients that to take advantage of our visits. So we actually see a pregnant woman approximately 14 times average during the pregnancy. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of visits to discuss with your provider, all your doubts and your fears. And what I really advise them is to keep a note section on their phone. Okay. When you come into the office, you're going to be kind of like a little bit nervous. You're going to forget everything you want to talk about. So I tell them every time you have a question in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, put it on your phone. That way, when you come in and I ask you, do you have any questions? We can really go over each and every question and really put a lot of those doubts and fears at ease.
So, I think I know the answer to this, but I need to ask because I guarantee you that there's somebody out there that's thinking that, is there any question that's off limit that's maybe a little too embarrassing to talk about? Because that's really what happens with a patient-doctor relationship. Sometimes we get a little timid.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing off limit. We talk about everything you want to talk about. If there's something that you want more privacy for, we can ask, the partner or whoever's in the room with you, mom, sister, friend, to step out of the room just so we can review some stuff together. But that's a place to really ask all those embarrassing questions that we are happy to answer, and there's no silly question.
Yeah. How about resources? Are there a lot of resources you find, and that a lot of these resources have grown?
Yes, in the field of mental health, we want to make sure to support the mom right from the beginning, mm-hmm. right? So we highly suggest that you seek mental health therapy right from the beginning, or if you're sharing with your OB-GYN and having these questions and conversations, that you ask, what are some resources that are available within the center, within, the agency, and asking for help.
Mental health, as we all know, wasn't a big conversation back in the day. And now it is very mainstream. We all talk about it. But a lot of times we don't talk about it when it comes to being a mom, right? Or even a new mom when there's so many worries. Is that something that you have seen a shift throughout time, that a lot of people are talking about it and normalizing the fact that it is extremely stressful, whether you're pregnant, you have a child, a baby, a teenager, to even an empty nester?
Yes, absolutely. Having these conversations and opening up this space, right, mm-hmm. gives the opportunity to talk more about it, ask for help, but it can be scary, right? It can be scary to say, hey, I need help, right? And so talking to your spouse, your family members, your support, your OB-GYN, and saying, hey, is it okay to feel nervous about XYZ, right? And having that comfort level to say, let's just talk about it and see what's available.
Yeah. And would you say that there's a change also? A lot of times people think, oh, is this your second time going through this process? You're not technically a new mom, but there's also so much stress when it comes to second time because there's this child that you're creating and then mm-hmm. one that you're breaking and then life, right?
Correct.
Whatever's going on with you.
Yes.
Would you say that changes?
There's different anxieties in second pregnancies. There's a lot of same questions that come up. A lot of patients are like, I don't remember. And I always tell my patients, don't be embarrassed about asking me, because when you deliver, it's like a reboot in the system where you kind of forget everything that happened, even the delivery part. You forget a lot about it. So when you're pregnant again, even if it's a year later, you don't remember what to expect. So asking the questions, we really encourage it. to kind of piggyback on the mental health and like if we're talking about it more, I think that COVID really shifted us a lot. There was a lot of isolation, a lot of anxiety, and I saw a huge rise in depression and anxiety in the pregnancy and postpartum. So we really started talking about it more because these patients really were struggling, especially in the postpartum period with being completely isolated from everybody because they were afraid of COVID or the baby getting COVID.
Right. Oh, now that you're talking about that, let's just stay on that subject. There's baby blues, there's postpartum. There's so much that could happen. We're all moms. I can admit I have had baby blues. I had baby blues and I had no idea what it was or that I even had it until after I read on it. But I wish that I could have had back then, years ago, someone say, you might have this. What would you say now to a mom that's watching that say, I'm scared if I am going to have baby blues or postpartum, what to do? What are the next steps after that? And the signs, most importantly, on knowing that you have it.
So talking in your prenatal visits, so when you're still pregnant, to your provider about, all that anxiety, we can pick up very quickly on the patients that are having a little bit more anxiety and fear about their upcoming delivery and postpartum visit. So we actually annotated in the chart, watch for depression, watch for baby blues. And we start initiating conversations very early. And we tell them, do you want to talk to somebody? Maybe we can send you to some classes to prepare you for the labor process and the postpartum period. We really want to pick up on it early and kind of nip it in the butts in order to really prepare them. There are patients that need mental help from very big early in the pregnancy, 19, 20, 24 weeks, in order to prepare them for the process. A patient that comes into our delivery room with zero preparation, sometimes they have very traumatic deliveries because they don't know what to expect. We want to help you really be prepared for the entire journey, not only the labor process, but the postpartum period. Yeah. And there's really good resources out there. We have at Baptist, we have so many resources. There's an OB-GYN in the community who no longer practices medicine, has just dedicated her time to helping women in their postpartum period. And she's absolutely amazing. And I refer a lot of my patients to her.
That's great to know.
Taking classes, maybe like a mommy class or just a training to get comfortable with the process. But also I'll share, my son was born in 2020, right? So it was, how do I share this wonderful experience? But I was limited.
Yeah.
Right? I was limited. My parents met my child through a window, right? So I'm sure that was really unique for you to support the women that I wasn't able to go to the visit with my spouse for our second child.
Yeah.
So that was in and of itself a journey. And after that, I was asking myself, it's okay to ask for help, right? Especially through this experience and what we're living through. And having the conversation with my spouse was really important because it was the only person that we could see. And my older child that was in the house asking me questions. You didn't do this with me. You didn't, right? So navigating that, you're going to have questions from your spouse, from your family members, from the older child, to say, hey, what do I do? Right.
But sometimes these feelings come up right after,
Correct.
like right after. So I remember feeling perfectly fine and happy and thrilled, over the moon of what was going on. But after I had the baby, I was like, oh my God, very overwhelmed. What do you do at that point if you're right now at home with a new baby and you feel a little lost?
So in the past, when I was in training especially, we actually saw our patients, our low-risk patients, 6 weeks postpartum. There's been a huge shift in that. We are now encouraging all patients to come to the office 7 to 10 days postpartum, no matter if you were high risk or low risk. One of the things we're trying to pick up.
That is a change right there.
Huge change. Are the baby blues and trying to prevent the postpartum depression. In that office visit, we want to make sure that not only you're physically feeling well, but how are you doing emotionally? Is breastfeeding working for you?
Oh yeah, because it's hard.
Breastfeeding, I tell my patients all the time, the hardest thing, even the pregnancy, the delivery, the hardest thing for me was the breastfeeding. Yeah. And I tell them, I got the baby blues from the breastfeeding because I couldn't get it. And I felt like a failure. I felt guilt. And I tell them, a happy mom is more important than anything else. I'm like, if breastfeeding is working for you, that is amazing. If it's not, don't. Just do whatever works for you. If it's pumping, great. If it's bottle feeding, formula feeding, we're fine with that. A happy mom is going to be a lot better than a depressed mom who's struggling with breastfeeding.
That is like the best advice that any mom could actually hear, because it is so true. And we're constantly trying to fit into this mold, right? To make ourselves happy, but also to kind of fit into this world of what we think it should be like. And sometimes it doesn't always work that way. You brought up a good point on like feeling emotionally and physically good. You have your first child, you're pregnant with, you're expecting your second or even your third, and life is crazy. What advice do you give to those new moms and how to adjust to the changes, and also mentally, most importantly, because I think that's also very hard?
So you have to have a routine. I mean, you have to have a routine with your older kids. It's hard. And I know I have 3 kids myself and they're all different ages. So a routine is very, very difficult, but it's what's going to get you through those first few weeks of life while you get the new baby on a good routine for you to be able to be more available for your other children, of course. Also taking time for yourself. It's hard when you have a baby latched onto your breast at all times to have time for yourself. But even if it's 30 minutes to an hour a day, you have to take care of your own mental health in order for you to be a good parent and a good spouse in your own home. So giving the baby over to the husband sometimes or to your mom or to your friend and being like, I need to take a shower and just have me time without kids trying to get into the bathroom.
An alone shower would be wonderful.
Yes. Or just use the bathroom, go for a walk, anything that gives you some peace of mind. Even if it's with that newborn, I tell my patients, I want you out of the house. It's not COVID anymore. We don't have to be trapped in your house. Go for a 30-minute walk, not with your mom, not with your mother-in-law, with your best friend who's going to make you laugh.
Yes.
Laughter is medicine. Call that friend and tell you that your doctor told you to take a walk with her.
That is great.
And that's
like that.
Yeah, right? Because the mother-in-law, the mom, they have a lot of opinions sometimes, and
times change.
Yes.
What we did back in the day.
We try. Maybe they have really great intentions.
They do have great intentions, but it's very overwhelming. Versus when you just have a friend that's there, not to give you advice on how to do things, but just to make you laugh. Yeah. I mean, that's very healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And not everyone's process of getting pregnant is the same. We hear a lot about IVF and a lot of different ways on women getting pregnant. That also takes a mental health, because that on its own is a journey that is. And you have to have your stress level for some reason. They say always has to be very low. And it's like, how is this possible? Yes. Would you be able to tell anyone that's out there that's going through that process, which is very tough?
So my first 2 babies were naturally conceived. I've shared that before. My 3rd baby was an IVF baby. And I am, first of all, I'm so grateful for her.
Yeah.
But I'm also grateful for the experience, because it's a different perspective as a physician to understand my patients that are going through that process.
Yeah.
The anxiety that you go through as a mother in those first 12 to 14 weeks of life before you can feel that baby move and you don't know if it's going to stay in place. I mean, it's crippling at times. So when I get those patients from the IVF clinic and they're like, I'm really anxious, I look at them, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
If you need to come in here every week to make sure that the baby's okay, call me. Come to my office. We will walk you through this. I think that going through it myself really, really changed things, and being able to connect with your patient in that way is very special. With surrogacies, having good communications with the biological parents is very important. Let it be through telehealth or through, are they on the phone during the visits, giving them updates via email, whatever it is. It really keeps them in the loop to really reduce their anxiety. And also for the surrogate, they are our patients at the end of the day. And I tell them, I am your doctor before anything. And my priority is your health as well as that baby's health. So giving them the comfort that they have somebody on their team as well is extremely important.
Okay, that's great advice as well. I should quote Elsa and say, let it go. But it's way easier said than done. And mom guilt, I admit, I will raise my hand. I don't know if you guys want to join me in this and say,
Absolutely.
I struggle with it way too many times. What advice do you have for mother's guilt?
I mean, mother's guilt, if we had the answer that we can just hand out
that
right
would
now,
be great,
that'd be wonderful. But I think mom guilt starts by looking inside, right? Having that self-awareness and saying, this is going to be helpful for me to be the best version of myself, for my children, and for those around me, because we do need to surround ourselves with that village. You cannot do it alone. It's really important to say, I need help. Who's my village? Let them know that, hey, times are getting a little bit rough right now. I may call for you, right? Or I simply just need to see the dishes cleaned, right?
Something so simple.
So simple, but it's not the dishes, right? Which I always like to emphasize. Probably not the dishes. There's probably something else. So, that mom guilt, it's looking inside and saying, how can I be the best version of myself? And if it's going out, taking some time for yourself, planning out and adding into that schedule, like you were mentioning, that scheduling out that me time is going to be really important for your own well-being and for them.
And how about having that conversation, right? A conversation with other moms. I think sometimes that just normalizes it, because if you really don't, like you had said, if you don't take care of yourself, it's like we always say, if you don't put your oxygen off when you go on an airplane, and you're not going to be able to help someone else. So I think sometimes that mom guilt really gets to us with that, not taking time for ourselves. But when we all say, oh, I feel the same, it just kind of normalizes it.
We just take a deep breath.
Right?
So I tell my patients all the time, taking time for yourself. My escape is going to the gym before going home. home. I mean, I have a tough job sometimes. You know,
Yeah,
there's
you do.
great days and there's beautiful days, but then there's also really, really hard days when I'm exhausted and going home to do homework with my 9-year-old who is a hands full and my 11-year-old who is in middle school and there's a lot of homework. Coming home in a bad mood is not going to help any of my family. So taking that 30, 45 minutes, even an hour to just let go of stress in a different way makes me a better mother at home. And yes, I do feel guilty sometimes because I was like, it could have been an hour spent with my 3-year-old or helping my 11-year-old do homework.
With homework, yeah.
But they need a happy mom at home, somebody with patience and love to guide them through everything. And that comes first.
Thank you for both of you saying that and normalizing everything that we feel. So you just mentioned the ages of your kids. And I have to say, I have a 14-year-old along with the 11 and 9. And having a teenager is like a whole new world that you sometimes you just want to fast forward. There are so many emotions when it comes to teenagers. You can't keep yourself mentally sane, but they also are not even mentally sane. What's the advice you have for moms with teenagers?
I think, I mean, we're both going to probably add some really insightful things because the teenage years, right, come with its own
set of rules.
Yeah, their own set of rules. They have a reality that for them, it is the end of the world when they say things.
And by the way, we were also there at one point,
Yes.
so we have to admit that.
So we have to connect with them on what their world is, what their reality is, connecting with them at their level. If it's sitting down and understanding what that video game means to them, what is that show that they're watching that they enjoy, sitting and watching the show with them and having conversations about what are their interests, what are the things that they're connecting with them to create the opportunity to start the conversation. We can't go from not asking any questions to saying, how was your day? And expecting them to share exactly how their day was with us because we're mom.
So I'm not quite at the teenage stage quite yet, but I am preparing mentally for it.
Give us those tips.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do with my boys, so my 2 older ones are boys, is we try to really keep an open communication at home. And I tell them, I'm like, when you do something wrong, I want to hear it from you first. If I hear it from you first, I'm not going to punish you. And I'm trying to open up those communication lines because I want to be the first phone call when something bad happens in their life. I don't want to hear it from a friend or a teacher or a principal or, God forbid, the police. I want them to call me and know that I will first and foremost be there to support them. So I'm hoping that's going to translate into their teenage years. It's worked so far. My 11-year-old, got in trouble in school for the first time, amazingly, recently. And I got a text message from his computer saying, Mommy, I messed up. I'm so sorry.
Oh, so you're doing it right.
And then he didn't answer me.
Okay.
So imagine what I felt in those 30 minutes where I had no idea what was going on. I called the school. They were like, no, Sebas is in class. He's fine. And then finally, when he was picked up, he called me in tears. And I was like, are you okay, baby? And he's like, I messed up. I'm so sorry. I said a bad word by accident in PE. And I'm like, Papi, I understand. It's not a big deal. We're all going to make mistakes and we are okay. Thank you for telling me though.
Yes.
He's like, am I punished? I'm like, no, you're not punished. We learn from our mistakes and we move forward. Yeah. So I'm hoping that something that I'm telling them now will kind of carry over to their teenage years when they're driving, when, eventually.
Or even when we become empty nesters, right? That's also something not only for them mentally, but for us, how to mentally kind of stay grounded, because I think that's exactly what you did to kind of help him and to help them to kind of get to other levels, which I think is very
another
important.
tip that helps as well is highlighting the things that they are doing well.
Correct.
Because as moms, we want to fix, we want to correct, we want to teach them the lesson, we want them to learn. But if it's constantly nagging, right, about what they're not doing, how they're not performing, how they're not sleeping, how they're not eating, how they're not interacting, well, I'm not going to do any of those things. Yeah. Or they're going to continue doing those things because we're reinforcing what they're not doing. So I know it's easier said than done, right? Yeah. Because we want
back to that let it go thing, let it go a little bit.
But as much as we can, highlighting, like your example is, thank you for telling me. Correct. Right? Having that moment and connecting with them doesn't always work. It's not always perfect, but I think that helps.
You just brought up something, and we have a lot of questions that are coming in. So I want to get to at least 2 questions before I let you guys go to some of the top Google questions that we found on the internet. And one of them is, if I don't get enough sleep, how do I manage my mental health? Which, by the way, this can go for us as parents and also for the kids as well. We all need sleep. How important is it, though?
Sleep is essential. It's essential for the newborn and essential for the mom, right? We have these conversations in therapy sessions. How's your sleep? How is it going? How many hours? And quality sleep is important because that's going to impact your focus, how receptive you are to conversations, how, just your everyday life is impacted by your sleep.
Right.
So making sure that you get good quality sleep, practicing good sleep hygiene. You have to make time for a warm bath, maybe before going to bed, giving off the newborn and saying, I'm going to need to take a warm bath, and preparing the environment for a successful night's rest. Because if there's the baby monitor, the lights, the phone, the TV on, the white noise in the back, well, it's going to be a little bit difficult.
I actually struggled a lot as a new mom with the sleeping. I was deprived already as is because of my job at that moment. And then having a newborn child, and you are fully aware there's no such thing as sleep. Yeah. What advice do you have for new moms in sleep?
I actually bring the partner into this. This is the time where they need to step up. If the mom is feeding every 3 to 4 hours, maybe they can take one of those shifts and either give, express milk or formula in order to give the mom a good 6-hour stretch of sleep at night. Yeah. The mom needs to be able to rest, and 3 hours at a time is not enough. So I really encourage the partners when they come to the visits that they need to step up as well and be part of this process. This is their child as well. It's not helping. It's just being a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Here's another question. I can't afford a therapist. What other things can I do to take care of my mental health?
And I think we started chiming in on those, which is scheduling that me time, whether it's going for a walk with a friend, having a conversation on the phone outside of the house, changing the environment, simply stepping outside to the patio or the front lawn and just taking a couple deep breaths, getting some sun, scheduling that these are things that are free, right? Maybe it does, if it's impacting your daily life, you need to seek that therapist. Okay. But trying some of these things is also recommended even after a therapy session. Right? Even after you're working with a therapist, we're going to recommend scheduling this me time.
Too much therapy could be a thing also?
I think finding the right therapist for you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Instead of, just going for a TikTok video or a blog that's generalized. Every person is individual. I tell them that about their pregnancy and their delivery and their labor process. So is your mental health. Your mental health is individual. We need to find something that works for you specifically. And there are some insurances that do cover therapy. Okay. And there's mommy groups that we can have and we can find for you.
Yeah. By the way, you brought up the TikTok and you brought up the social media. How much have you seen a shift with people taking advice off of social media and kind of adding that stress to themselves? Because like you just said, we're not all the same.
So I tell my patients, I'm like, whatever you watch, whatever you have questions on, bring it into my office. Let's talk about it and let's discuss it. What I'm seeing a lot more, the issue is then taking advice blindly from the TikTok or the social media and coming in with these set birth plans that are very rigid because they want to do, what TikTok's saying in the moment and their trends,
or trends.
So I try to explain to them everything is fluid in life, including our labor process. So we need to really be able to shift our direction when things change. And sometimes that means shifting our birth plan. And as long as they see, they know that we are going to be communicating with them, they are okay with that shift.
Ladies, you are amazing. I wish I would have had all this advice before I became a mommy, but I am glad that you got to share your wisdom and have this conversation with so many of our members here today. Thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it. I learned a lot and I hope that you learned a lot as well. Thank you so much. Remember, viewers, to make sure you hit that subscribe button that you see on our channel here to keep up with the latest health and wellness information and, of course, tips from our experts. Thank you so much for watching and happy Mother's Day.
Find additional valuable health and wellness information on our resource blog at baptisthealth.net/news. And be sure to interact with us on our social media channels for live and upcoming events. Baptist Health Talk is brought to you by Baptist Health, the warmer side of care.